Well, I know Fate's gonna be late, so,
Who's gonna be late?
Fate,
Okay.
Can you start it till they get, you can start till they get it?
Okay, we're just here just so we can hear it.
You never.
There, that's yours.
well, I can always do the open forum. Or delay it a couple minutes.
You mean like,
Two members are not here.
Open the meeting and there's no decision can be made. You can talk about everything, you just can't make a decision.
I like that,
Well, that happens, that actually happens a lot when you have small committees.
it's your call, we're probably like that. Quiet.
Hi there.
Hi.
You can pull up that chair over there, or those back there, or, I don't know if you do, or move that one over so you're not sitting right directly under the table, under the TV.
I really don't.
Actually, it's being recorded, I think, there.
Yep, right there, and I
So-
believe we're on,
Oh, okay.
1 second, let me just verify.
So-
I don't see anything yet.
It's not,
It's
you're not
gonna be
gonna
in a
see
delay,
it.
1 second.
It's gonna record it and then and then post it. But you can't do this in a council meeting live.
Oh, is that what they said?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I thought he would know.
No,
I
he
think
said he was
Frank is,
Jim said he had to record it and then post it afterwards.
are you sure?
Pretty sure.
Hold on, let me check.
Just not sure on that process.
I don't see it,
And it's 5:31.
yeah, I don't see it, because I'm in the city of Berwyn.
We are live now, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we are live.
Okay, I guess we are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the Public Works, Parking, Trees, Traffic, Street, Sewers Committee meeting today. We have the agendas here. I'm gonna pass around the sign-in sheet, if you could please sign in. And what I'd like to do before I start open forum is just to ask everyone around the table to please introduce themselves if you're part of the committee meeting as a member, and then just who you are as a visitor. So I'll start with myself. I'm 6th Ward Alderman Alicia Ruiz. I chair the Public Works Committee.
David Alva, Berwyn Township Supervisor.
Scott Lennon, First Ward Alderman.
Zach Taylor, resident.
Nicole Campbell, Senior Engineer with Public Works.
Selena Garcia, Communications.
Claudia Ayala, Communications.
Bob Schiller, Director of Public Works.
Okay. We still have 2 committee members, or one
One
committee
committee
member. Not here yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and at least start with open forum. So if you are a resident here and you would like to make comments, please go ahead and do so.
Okay, that would be me.
Well, yeah, I had 2 aldermen walk in right now. Do you mind introducing yourself, please, just for all those that are watching?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Rob Labone, 5th Ward Alderman.
My name is Mary Beth Arenado, 7th Ward Alderman.
And just for the record, Alderman Pavone is a committee member of the committee.
Are we waiting on one more committee member, or?
No,
Alderman Fate.
oh, just walked in?
All right, cool.
Alderman Fate, do you mind introducing yourself for,
There's
Our
the
viewers.
agenda.
Alderman Faith, 4th Ward Alderman.
and committee member of the committee? There's a sign-in sheet going around, if you want to make sure they sign it. So we are now technically in open forum. Do we have any visitors that would like to make public comments?
Yes, I would like to make public comments. I'm Zach Taylor, I'm a resident. I'm passing around my letter I only printed 5, but anybody who's on the committee or alderman, they can take one. I also sent electronic copies of these. And I also attached in that email today additional information for context, so if you could please forward that to everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my name is Zach Taylor, I'm a 3rd Ward resident, and I'm here on behalf of what we're calling the Berwin Tree Canopy Initiative. And I have a letter to you all, so I'll just read that. Dear Public Works Committee and Public Works Director Bob Schiller, we are writing to ask you that you increase the city budget and staff support directed towards tree planting, tree care, and climate resiliency. While we understand that there are many competing priorities when it comes to the city budget, an increased investment in our urban forest is a matter of equity, public health, and climate preparedness that our city needs to take seriously. Berwyn residents understand this all too well, with increased intensity and more frequent spring storms that have taxed our stormwater systems and flooded our basements. I'm sure that's going to be a big topic tonight. Additionally, there are several grant opportunities, federal, state, and regional, that should be targeted to achieve more equitable and climate-ready Berwyn. Trees make cities eminently more livable by intercepting stormwater and reducing flooding, reducing the heat island effect, reducing crime, improving air quality, and improving community health and well-being. The inequitable distribution of trees exacerbates social inequities. A map of tree cover is too often a map of income and race, especially in cities. That's because trees are often sparse in low-income neighborhoods and some neighborhoods of color. And that's a quote from the treeequityscore.com. If you haven't visited that reference before, it's really valuable. The Berwyn Urban Forest Summary documents that at present, our city has a tree canopy of 21% of our city, but that 34% of our land cover here in Berwyn could be converted to tree canopy. So that means there's a pretty big gap, and some of the resources I sent in that email back that percentages up. We are asking that the City of Berwyn and the Public Works Department create an urban forest and climate action plan that includes the following. A mechanism for community participation in city government, such as a citizen commission on issues related to environment, climate resilience, and urban forestry. This commission could review tree care proposals, champion the Berwyn Urban Forest Program, and work with city staff members on community outreach. Hiring an outside and independent consultant to create a comprehensive climate action and preparedness plan that identifies opportunities for green infrastructure and stormwater retention. A dedicated staff member to serve as city forester. This person should engage directly with the community, care for and expand our urban forest, and secure additional grant funding in support of this initiative. And this is not a slight at Director Schiller. We just know that Public Works is of big responsibilities, and that's why I bring it up. The trees should be its own thing. Increasing the native tree canopy and support biodiversity in Berwyn by creating a city webpage that makes it easy to select the native tree from a drop-down menu and then have it installed in a parkway by volunteers or Public Works employees. B, offering more oak species, including bur oak, white oak, pin oak, and swamp white oak for any requested parkway or cityscape, and it should say that's suitable for trees. Increasing outreach for the public to share information about our urban forest and encouraging the public to plant parkway trees in partnership with the City of Berwyn. And consider creative incentives for planting a parkway tree, including recognition by the City Council or a reduced fee parking sticker. The development of a tree care pre-qualification system that moves away from low bid procurement and towards the hiring of certified arborists and tree care technicians with a proven track record of safety and best management practices. Low bid does not always mean best bid. A follow-up analysis and update of the 2014 Berwyn Urban Forestry Management Plan that documents outcomes for this plan, changes in tree inventory, and next steps for Berwyn's urban forest. And I should add that the urban forestry plan should be added to the city website so it's accessible to all. The need for healthy native urban forests has never been more pressing, and we are offering to help garner community support and work with city staff to help transform Berwyn's tree canopy. It is our hope that conversations could begin in the summer of 2021, and some of these changes could be realized by the fall planting season. And then I included this document, which is a plan that Beth Gunzel, who is my co-founder of the Berwyn Tree Canopy Initiative, and I developed, and we submitted to the Director Schiller. Basically, we just want to get more trees in the ground in Berwyn as quickly as possible. And that doesn't mean sacrificing safety or strategy or putting them in the wrong places. But we want to get trees in the ground. And Director Schiller, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you told me that in this spring we planted 25 trees in Berwyn, which is great. But I believe that we should plant at least 100 trees in Berwyn each year. And that could begin to close the gap of our tree canopy. And we're willing to raise money if that is necessary. But it doesn't, when we submitted this plan to Director Schiller, it didn't, I wasn't sure, it wasn't clear if that is necessary or not. So I guess the path forward is something that we're looking to have conversations around.
Okay. Well, thank you for this information, and I really appreciate you taking the time and effort to put this together and to come here to present it today. Because I'm just now getting it, and our members are just now getting it, I would love some time for everyone to have an opportunity to review it, get some feedback, some feedback from our Public Works Department on what already takes place versus what you're suggesting and proposing here, and then how we would be able to adopt some of these things, is what I'm suggesting at this point. It's a pretty comprehensive proposal, and I like the idea. I think it's a great idea. One of the things I'll just share real brief, because I don't want to get too deep into public open forum, because we do have a very lengthy agenda, is I had mentioned to Director Schiller earlier this year, just after Arbor Day, that I would love to do something next year for Arbor, like the Arbor Week here in Berwyn, and really do some informative educational platforms in regards to trees and their importance and maintenance, water line maintenance, and all those things that go with it to educate our residents. But again, that's a lengthy conversation, something that needs to continue, and I'd like to add this to that conversation. Any-
Can I add
Yes,
something?
absolutely.
In regards to your number 2, we do have a stormwater management plan that was developed through CMAP. I can email you the link on the city's website to supplement, an action plan or anything like that. And it's been successful in securing grants for us as well.
That's great.
Nicole, would you mind sharing that with the members of the committee?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be
Right,
great.
it's out on the website, we'll
Okay.
pass along the link.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess I would just ask that conversations be had with community rather than without community. So if that means us coming in and having that follow-up meeting, we would just like to be part of it rather than having a separate meeting where you review our materials and then report back to us. I think it would be much more collaborative if we're able to do that. But I appreciate everyone's time. I know you're very busy, so thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
I have one question really quick.
Sure.
Would you all be willing to come to ward meetings to talk about your work?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we would, and in our secondary plan here, it outlines some of the activities that we'd be willing to participate in, which includes doing educational, informative sessions. I worked as an arborist for the city of Chicago. My background is in ecology. I currently work as an ecologist for a private firm, so I'm happy to share information, but I would rather do that in partnership with city staff.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Zach.
thanks.
Any more public comments or public visitors? Seeing none, I'm gonna go ahead and close open forum and move directly to our first agenda item. I guess officially calling our meeting to order, and discuss partnerships and communication for infrastructure emergencies. As many of us know, we had a very unusual circumstance over a month ago in the 5th and 6th Ward combined, where there was two blocks specifically that were without water for 4 days. It was a very unusual circumstance. It's not something that typically happens in our city, but it was a very difficult and stressful situation for all involved, for Public Works, for the residents, for the aldermen involved. And what I brought this agenda item to the table basically to talk about how we can build partnerships and build a communication strategy or process where all that are involved are equally working on the matter and equally providing efforts and resources to the situation. So I don't wanna be the one leading the conversation, so I've asked also our Berwyn supervisor to join us today because, he does oversee the health department and water is a health issue. We have Claudia Ayala here to talk about the City of Berwyn and communications, how they would play a role in this. It's a newly formed department in the city, it's still evolving, and it's not, fully developed, but we'd still like to see how maybe in the future, if a circumstance like this or something similar, where residents are directly impacted and, or a high volume of residents are directly impacted, how do we service them? How do we work collaboratively to make sure that everyone knows what their role is and how we work together in a partnership? Because I believe we're better together and we're stronger together. And for me personally, that was a very stressful 4 days, keeping on top of everything and making sure that the residents were comfortable. And on that note, I'm gonna leave it open for discussion. What I'm really looking for is some constructive dialogue on how we can work together in those two main lines, and that is, those two main agenda items, and that is really communication and resources. How do we ensure that we're reaching our fullest capacity in a rare circumstance like this, should it occur again? Any comments, any information anyone would like to share?
All right, well, then I'll start with this. Yeah, as it was stated, these type of occurrences are very, very, very rare. Rarely do you get these things that last longer than, 12, 18 hours tops. The one we had on Cermak Road was about 16 hours, and we ended up having to put 11 feet of new pipe in. So it's one of those things that these are usually taken care of within a day. As far as notification, I will send an email or I will send a text message to the alderman whose area it is. And at that point, then I'm gonna move on. I will send I'll send a notification to the communications department. Communications is a relatively new group, so we're still trying to figure out exactly how that's gonna fit. So before we go and try and shoehorn something in without just understanding all of the issues that are gonna be faced with communications and the people that are there, I don't wanna get too deep into anything there, because we gotta kinda let things settle in, let's see where things go, and then if we don't like where things end up, then we can kinda tweak them from there. But, I mean, the thing is that social media is gonna be number one. It's the quickest disbursement of information. First will be the alderman. Second will be social media. Because social media can be within an hour or so, hour or two from when notification gets there, depending on what time that is. Our city website, it's only staffed during normal business hours. So anything put on the city website would be normal business hours. And then, the ENS system, I wouldn't even attempt to use it unless it was gonna go over a 24-hour period. Because you have to draft something, you have to put it together, it takes over 4 hours to get everything executed and ready to be dispersed through the ENS system. So, if we see something that looks like it's gonna go over 24 hours, we can start in the 16-hour range, putting something together to go out. But that also is dependent upon what the circumstances are, what and all of that. But somebody can put something out after a 24-hour period if we still have an issue.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
I think that the most important thing is advising the alderman, because that's the first step, and advising us as soon as it's happening, so that if we get the calls in or the emails in, because not everybody's on Facebook, so I have constituents who have emailed me and called me. I think what you say as far as communication is correct, because you could go in there and you don't know how bad it's gonna be, or if it's gonna take longer. So I think the best thing, and I know that, you know, constituents said, well, how about a phone blast? You know, to folks, how about, you know, just at least saying, hey, there's no water in these areas, it's being tended to right now, we will keep you posted. So even like a
That's the
phone blast.
ENS message, that it's over a 24-hour period before we would even consider that, because you have to get, somebody from the police department has to get everything set up, we have to get everything executed, get a script prepared, somebody has to read the scripts, English, Spanish, get them ready to go out. That's a long process, it's not a simple, blast. So that's why we've set it up that, you know, I will notify the alderman when it happens, so you'll get texts from me or emails from me at 1 a.m. that X is going on.
Right.
And
I think
then
that's
after, you know, then I'll alert the communications people as well, so when they get up, they'll have a message, they'll be able to prepare something and get it out on social media, and then working right down the list.
But you were keeping in contact with these people on Ridgeland daily, right? I mean, they were notified what was going on, they knew, or?
I kept in touch with Alderman Ruiz, and when Alderman Pabon was out there, I let him know. Then he reached out, I let him know what was going on. You know, when once we were out there, I mean, I was there 18 hours a day, every day.
It wasn't like the residents were in the dark. They knew what was happening and.
But the thing is that they knew we were out there, but they didn't know what was happening, because we didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
We were we were methodically going through step by step by step by step to determine what the issue was. So, and that's the frustrating part to them, because I don't have an answer to them, because I don't have an answer myself.
Right.
You know, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and this is the second time that I've had a leak that went 3 or more days.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's that 3-day period, right? So the first day, we know that there's gonna be things that are gonna happen. I mean, we have really old infrastructure in our city, and that's the case in a lot of the suburbs, but once you get past that second day, is when people start to get a little bit worried, right? They don't know what they're gonna do. Water is a basic, essential, we all know that, right? Thing in folks' lives, so really folks couldn't do much without it. And so I think that it's when you get to that third day, when you know that second day's over and no solutions are gonna come, that I think information from the city needs to be much more available, right? I think we need to be getting communications from the city. I think Alderman Reese and myself are out there a lot, and Alderman Reese did a really good job of talking to her constituents. I know I was dropping letters every single day, but you're not gonna catch everybody at the door, right? Some folks have questions, they're concerned, right? So I think knowing that aldermen understand what's going on is really important, but as residents and like taxpayers, I think they wanna be able to see that the city has some type of communication directly being provided to them. Once we get to that far down the road is what
But
I'm
the
saying.
aldermen are the primary source of communication
Of course,
to
of
those
course.
residents.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna stay focused on what I have to
Yeah.
fix.
When I say city, I'm
So,
not saying public works. though.
I'm-
So,
I'm-
yeah, when I
but-
say city, I'm saying,
So
And this
that's
is
why I
coming from the
try and,
residents.
yeah, that's why I try and
let
let
me
you
finish,
you
one
guys
second,
know.
let me finish. So, I'm sharing this because this is what I've heard from residents, right? I'm not sharing this because this is any type of, you know, there's any reason to get into this any deeper, but residents were talking about how they reached out to the city, how they called the city, how they couldn't get a response, right? How sometimes they would call someone and folks didn't know what was happening. We understand that's not, folks that are answering the phone aren't gonna know what's happening, they understand that. But they were saying that, you know, they only had heard from, you know, Alderman Reese, they only had heard from me, and they didn't feel like the city was supporting them. So I'm just sharing that information. And I think when you get to the third day, when you have children, when you're older adults, when you need, you know, to take care of a lot of things in your household, maybe you run a business out of your household, like these are really difficult challenges. So I think day 3, as you mentioned, things usually don't go past that 24-hour mark anyways. I feel like there has to be an intervention plan. We talked about communication. I think it needs to then position itself and transition to intervention, and what kind of relief is gonna happen for those residents, what type of direct communication from the city is gonna be occurring, just because it's not necessarily about whose fault it is, or, why isn't that getting done quick enough? It's just like, hey, I'm checking in, we know this is happening, we know the aldermen are reaching out, but this, we're here, we're working on it, this is what we're finding, and this is what's happening. And so me and Alderman Reese were sharing what was happening, and we were sharing your updates, but I just have to say that I think that when it gets to that level, when we start encroaching on day 4, almost getting to day 5, a water outage of that length becomes a crisis.
I just wanted to make mention on the communication structure, in particular for situations like this. I just wanted to be clear that we are utilizing NIMS protocols and FEMA protocols. So as far as the communications, it's NIMS 242. If you guys want to take a look at that. And so as far as like, when ENS are activated, that is determined on, the protocol that we follow, which is Public Works, Police Department, Mayor's Office, and Finance if necessary. So I just want to make it clear that we were utilizing that structure. That is a structure in place. I know that our emergency management Representative Tony Loretto spoke to you guys about NIMS, and I know that many of you guys have completed that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that the structure we are utilizing is the FEMA NIMS. So, of course, as Bob stated, we're working to see what does work and what doesn't work for our community in particular. And we are certainly open to suggestions of what does work. But at the time, for the moment, for structure-wise and internal process, we are utilizing the NIMS structure and communication. So it does kind of have several layers, as Bob mentioned. And so our communications obviously comes from the directors, and with Mayor Rivera being public information officer. So we were in communications during the entire time with the directors and with the mayor. And we were aware that you were having notifications. In fact, we shared some of your updates. So thank you for that, Alicia. I know that you were on the ground when we were not able to be there, so we did share that. So we're always looking to see what ways we can collaborate with aldermen in order to be more effective while still maintaining our NIMS protocols and our FEMA protocols that we have to follow until otherwise directed. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew.
Thank you.
Sure.
Maybe I could add, what I would look at if it occurs, and these might occur more often, is just really, and I think everybody's looking for this as well, is a timeline. Where do we go at 2 hours? Where do we go 8 hours? Where do we go 16, 20, whatever it's gonna be, 2 days, 3 days? And possibly, because, a lot of us work, we have our full-time jobs, but have a timeline, and then if it is going on for a while, maybe we have an auxiliary officer there, we usually do, but maybe that's the person that they could go to and just double check. And then we learned from this about water, flushing toilets and stuff. I know I was with Alderman Ayala about when she had hers, and I was there for about 6 hours, and I saw the timeline and I saw what they were doing. So it was really beneficial for me to notice that, see that, but just really communicating to the people. And if it takes us to type a quick memo, us as aldermen, and print it and go door to door, if it's not the whole city and it's 2 blocks or 1 block, it might help. But I really think the timeline would help us all to understand that, boom, this is what happens, this is gonna go and happen. Because otherwise social media always beats it to us. They're on social media right away, within 5 minutes, water's out, what's going on? I know we're not gonna be that fast, but if we could put a timeline, and who do we call at certain times? When do we get the health department involved, district? When do we get to, the city involved? Where do we get this? I mean, should we be the ones going and buying water for people? Or is there a resource in our city that we can do that, so we're not throwing our car or whatever? And that's, I know weekends could be a little more difficult for us, but truly, I think that's what we're looking for, to make it kind of streamlined, so the residents, as long as we're communicating communicating with them, they realize that at least you're trying to help.
So I'll just add a little bit more to everything. So for me, this was a true learning curve for everybody. This was a lesson learned, right? And it was a rarity. Could it happen again? Sure. Will it happen again? We don't know, right? I agree with so many comments that were made here, and what I'm hearing from you, Bob, is that we do have a timeline, right? And it's kind of in your head, and we follow suit when you're giving us the directions, like I'm contacting aldermen. We're now contacting our communications department that just now exists, which has been doing a fabulous job with the water main breaks that have been occurring, posting it on Facebook, making individuals aware. I agree with Alderman Arnella that not everyone's on Facebook, so how do we reach those that are outside of that? And how do we, when does ENS come in? I agree with you, Bob, I don't think the first, day, maybe even the first 12 hours, maybe if we know it's gonna be extended past that, where it doesn't look like the solution's coming up, maybe then ENS comes in, but again, not everyone's on the ENS system as well, so I think we need to work collectively promoting that residents need to register for that, they need to get on that, because that's the wave we're moving into as a city, right? We're moving into electronic communications, that's Facebook, that's ENS if you're not on Facebook, right? So that's how you get your text or your phone call or the email that you're registering for. That's how you stay in the loop of what's going on. And it's not just around infrastructure emergencies, it's around, our snow thing, our blizzard, our blizzards,
It's snow outages and
it's
all that
snow
stuff.
outages, it's a lot of
Right.
things, right? So it's not just specific to the infrastructure, issue that we're facing now, it's public works in a whole, right? Anything that's going to, in some shape or form, infringe on residents and their daily life, right? It could be parking, it could be passageway through streets, it could be a tree down, it could be a lot of things. So I think that's kind of where I wanna really take this, is like, okay, we have the poster child, we know the struggles we went through, we've kind of learned from some of those and implemented some things already, but if we get into this situation, like for me, honestly, I was banging my head on the wall, like, how come I had never reached out to our township supervisor and got water? Like, it
Right.
didn't even cross my mind. Like, I scurried around getting donations for water for the residents when it could have been a simple text or phone call.
Right.
Like, I need you, I need water, can you bring your crew, can you come in? And can you help us with this situation? So, that's the whole intent of this. I hear what you've said, Bob, and I just kind of want to repeat this and just make sure that if this is kind of what we feel, because again, I agree with Alderman DeBonne, 3 days is kind of escalation, right? We're getting to desperate measures here, and how do we make sure that the residents, we're keeping them assured that we're in it with them, right? Because if we don't have a solution, we're in it with them. So I heard Bob contacts alderman, Bob contacts communications, they blast it on social media. Obviously, the city website may not be needed depending on the situation, because it could be repaired immediately within hours, so, there's no point. But if it is utilized, obviously during normal business hours, which is 9 to 5. And then ENS comes in 24 hours, if the situation is still occurring 24 hours and could be longer than that. Does that sound about right, Bob? And then what do we do at the 3-day escalation, right?
I mean-
Where do we get, what do we get to that point? Because we've got 24 hours covered, and then at what point does our township come in and provide any
So-
emergency services that could be
Yeah,
needed?
I'd like to add that. Thank you, Alicia, for calling to this meeting. Mr. Sherwood, thank you for the work you do. I joke around to my kids, hey, do these chores, you're not breaking bricks, but you guys are breaking bricks. So thank you very much. Mayor Lubero reached out to me during this time and, asked, for us how we can help out. He was the first person to reach out, and so that's when we got boots on the ground, and we had surveys, and we surveyed a lot of the residents to see what their need was. Obviously, as a, health department, our concern is health and sanitation. So that's when we went to ACE to get the 5-gallon water jugs to help them flush toilets, help them bathe, help them, with other things. And thankfully, ACE actually provided, the water jugs, they donated them, half of them at least. And so we bought hand sanitizer also. And, you know, I think that, you know, going back to the timeline, I think that you know, this hardly ever happens. You said twice in the 40 years. I hope it doesn't happen again, but I think, you know, when it gets to where it's gonna be past a day, I think that's when, obviously, you're gonna be in communication with communications here. I think that's when communications lets us know, the township, when it sees it get past a day, hey, Township Health District, please
Be aware.
be aware, come help us out. I think that's where our fit can be.
Because I think that, you know, you guys came through on day 4, and I think that was really important to have you there. And I think that door-to-door presence of additional support from an institution, right? Institution, I know we represent an institution, but having you all there, I think made people feel a lot more, you know, comfortable. Like, hey, this is, you know, people are out here, they're asking me how I'm doing. It's also the city, you know, it's the township really, but like they're out here, they're communicating. So I think having that presence, that door-to-door presence, and that you all have the ability to do that with these surveys, check-ins, these, you know, wellness checks basically, that's important. I think that's really important to the process. And I think even before that day 3 that we're talking about right now is like replicating what we already did, right? We dropped letters, right? We made sure we're transferring that communication from the department to the residents. And then meanwhile, in getting to day 2, that's already starting to be like, oh, is this ever gonna turn back on? And so having us out there, having that presence, I think was I think that's that day 2 plan, right? And I think having you all come out throughout that is really helpful too, even day 2 as well, because, you know, if it lasts more than that one day, because now people can get connected to resources, and I think that was the thing, right? Folks needed to figure out how to shower, and awesome businesses and resources came together to support that, and you went out there and got some, I went out there and got some for different things, right? But like we can then gauge like how bad is it really right now for the residents, what do they need, so that if it does get to day 3, day 4, we know what the intervention plan is, we know what that block committee has said they needed, what the kind of challenges they're facing. So I think I love the idea of having that happen sooner, so that we have that information.
Yeah, I mean, this, I don't think is, you know, as far as I lived here, has ever happened like that. You know, I went to high school here. But I think, yeah, these things just come up, right? I mean, you know, all these things are coming up, right? COVID, that's the stuff we've never dealt with before. But I think, yes, going forward, I think, you know, I know that, you know, communications with the city of Berwyn, we work well together, and I think they can let us know as soon as they know it's gonna hit the 24-hour mark, they'll let us know and kind of activate us.
Okay, so now I'm putting you at the 24-hour mark. We on 24 and on. Let's reach out.
Yeah.
Well, Claudia will be the center keeping us all together, because personally, I mean, for me, I think that, you know, we need to free up Public Works and Director Schiller as much as possible to focus on the issue at hand, right? That's his expertise, that's what they do, and that's what they need to focus on. So to me, it's really critical that we all have a role in this, because that's the only way that it's gonna work best. Because I don't think that is really, should fall on your shoulders to, I mean, I think you have one person you communicate with, or it's a group email that, I don't know, but I think the less you're involved and the more you can focus on situations is really where this should be going. And that's really the message that I wanna give, and share with everyone, and hope that everyone agrees with that. Because I think we have more than enough hands on deck to allow them to do what they do best, and that is to cure the problem.
Yeah, I agree.
So when you have an opportunity, if you haven't already done so, we can definitely forward the link to the FEMA communications, and, you know, it is structurized, but of course, you know, if there's something that can be modified that will be more effective for our community, then we definitely are going to, you know, explore it, absolutely.
And I would just add one last part, Claudia, I don't know, I know that your department is still evolving, and
Yes.
there's a lot of things, and it'll probably keep evolving as time goes on. But one thing that I would like to see happen from the city level in communications is constantly promoting the ENS. I know it's on our website,
Mhm.
but again, people don't think about going there to look for it, or, you know, it's a very random thought. but if we could continue to message that, you know, as a rotating message on the Facebook page, maybe in the water bills, maybe when city sticker forms go out, every time that there's something going out to residents, you know, that reminder, just, I think it's already on the sticker, I'm not sure, but yeah, it is,
It's on
right?
the sticker,
Yeah,
it's
it's already
on
on the
flyer.
sticker. So just to constantly remind, and I think that that needs to come from aldermen too, as we're
We
meeting,
can all share
as
it
we're
too.
meeting constituents and we're engaging with them. Every opportunity that we have
Sidewalk
to
flyers and
message
everything,
that,
too.
to sign up for ENS,
Mhm.
I think is critical for all of us to
Sure,
take that
it's on the
role.
snow.
Yeah.
Because the more that we get signed up, the better that this
Right.
system's gonna work for us in our favor.
Sure, and then another tool that we've developed is, as you may or may not be aware, our city has, since the census, since about a year ago, moved towards having more of a presence in the community and meeting them where they're at. So we have, you know, resources now and partners, community partners that assist us with engagement for capacity purposes. And so part of that includes, like, you know, our tents that we have. Our tents are, have messaging for the ENS. So not just the ENS, but the community calendar, which is something that also a lot of people have a high demand for. So we do have that marketing tool available to us, and we do utilize that on the ground. So as an example, we've been at a couple of previous years in back-to-school events or community events. We now have the staff to have a presence at these school and community events, and our tents have that information, and we also have flyers. So one thing that we can also do is share that with you guys, and I would really appreciate if you would all utilize your networks to also disseminate that information. So again, we can work collaboratively to provide as much information, because that's definitely our goal, not just for residents, but also for employees and even for our own internal departments.
One other area that I thought of that I don't think, I'm not sure if we share it there, is like
Sure.
when we have the new residents come and fill out the forms when they're buying property.
Mhm.
Maybe that's somewhere else that we can add it
The
to
welcome
as one of
packet.
the forms.
Yeah,
Or,
absolutely.
you know, new families that are coming in.
Sure,
just
sure.
to fill out that. Cause you
Yeah.
know, they have to fill out the affidavit, they've gotta get registered for their water bill, they should get that form too, for them to register. So we're kinda getting them right when they're in and they're excited about being here.
Right.
It's fresh, cause once they get settled in, it's kinda like, you know, all bad habits have been formed.
So I'll forward to you the communications kind of tools, and in that, it has one of those readers, so that folks can, you know, just kind of hover over their, that reader and get signed up. And we also developed a Bitly, so I'll make sure that we forward those flyers. They are available on our website, but I know that it can be, you know, a little bit time-consuming to look through all that forms, so I'll make sure you guys get them. And, you know, again, if you see anything that we share that is useful to your constituents, please do share it, repost it, take it. All our information is streamlined in Spanish and English, so,
I repost all the time.
thank you,
All right.
appreciate it.
Well, unless there's any more comments about this, I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. And not without saying, Bob, thank you for everything that you do, especially the situations that we've been having occur more frequently than usual. You have done a phenomenal job, managing them and, basically, you know, working hard, working your butt off, and your team as well, getting us and keeping us in as best a shape as possible. So I really appreciate that, and please express my gratitude to your department.
You don't need me for super block parking, do you?
I'm sorry?
You don't need me for super block parking.
Nope, you're free to go. Thanks, David, for coming, appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. Take care.
Moving on to vehicle stickers for veterans. So I'm not sure if any other of our colleagues are experiencing this, but every year I get calls about veterans and why isn't the sticker fee free exempt them. Every year I get a couple. It's not the same every year, it's different ones. And they're very frustrated. They're very frustrated because to them, they feel the verbiage that we have on our city website, on our vehicle registration form, indicates that it is free to them. And I think the word that is becoming unclear is retired. I think that's the word that kind of, everyone is defining it in their own mind, what that means. And it's not what we as a city, it doesn't always line up with the individuals who are receiving the information. So I just wanted to have that discussion. I know that when this ordinance came into place where we are now with veterans and the structure that we have for vehicle stickers. I was not part of that. So I don't know, Bob, if you wanna give us a little bit of history about that, but my question is, do we wanna make it exempt for veterans? Do we wanna reword what we currently have? But I'd like to be able to, just kinda have some, a better communication with our residents on what exactly we offer.
Okay. And this was a discussion topic in like 2014. This came up. And, here's some of the stuff that came out from it. Matter of fact.
And also, I did my own little homework. I did search the surrounding neighboring communities to see what they offer.
Yep.
And who's offering it, so you can take a look at that too, to see what some of our local neighborhoods are doing.
Who is town?
Just the town,
Yeah, well, who's it?
if you look under it, it says Cicero,
Oh,
Stillwater,
town.
Riverside, no Riverside.
Oh, I see
Sorry,
what
I
you're
didn't
saying.
have
That's
the
like the letter.
Yeah, the header.
Got it.
But anyway, yeah, we talked about this, and this was exactly the discussion that was had. And the discussion was, do you want to give away a $50 vehicle sticker every year to someone who entered the service out of high school, served 4 years, came out, and thank you for their service, but they came out and they went and got a job and continued on with their life. So that means from the age of 22 to the age of 65, you would be giving them free vehicle stickers. So you do
If
them.
they stayed in town.
If they were here, I'm just, yeah. But as of when we did this originally, and I don't think things have changed demographically a whole lot, we have a very high number of military participants, whether they are, past served, whether they're reservists, whether they're retired, whether they're currently serving. But that's why when we sat and we talked about this, we said the final determination was a retired military veteran, which is someone who served 20 years, retired from the service, has their DD-214, which they were able to bring into City Hall and secure a vehicle sticker.
When we were doing the research back, sorry to interrupt, in 2014-15, we were quoted that we had around like 15% of our population was
Some sort of some had served in some form or fashion.
that
So-
could be verified, but we did try and look into it and do the research and what surrounding communities were doing and
Yeah,
that
So-
kind of stuff, and the retired.
and that's why we ended up coming up with the retired. And, people will say, well, no, because you're basically smoke and mirrors, because when you're retired, you're 65 and you're getting a free one as a senior. Well, you can retire from the military at 42 years old. 40 years old. You go in at 20, you do 20 years, at 40, you're retired from the service with a DD-214. Those are the people that, they've given a great deal of their life to their country, absolutely, 100% on board with that. But giving it to anybody who served at any capacity at any time, I think that's a huge revenue hit that you have to make up somewhere else. So what are you gonna do to make that up? If you give it to the veterans, what are the vehicle stickers go up $20 for everybody else in town to offset the revenue? Because otherwise, you're gonna be cutting projects and everything else, because this is what You know, the revenue is what keeps the city moving and running. And, you know, we've seen some of the reports. We have, you know, some of our Facebook fans with the aged infrastructure and the roadway conditions index that have been provided and things like that are showing that we need to be investing in our community. If we're taking the revenues away, how are we gonna make them up?
Any other comments? Bob, did you vote on this originally? Were you in office in 2014?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I was, yeah. I was, yeah. So I think we, yeah, the way we propose and.
Yeah, because
Just for
that
retired,
was, yeah, that was Alderman Palachik that had brought it up, and we said, we talked about it at great length.
Yeah,
And that's what we came up with, is that a 20-year veteran,
and we still adhere to this today, right?
Mhm.
So.
that's the way it's
What do you feel, do you
written.
wanna change this?
Well, you know,
Structure?
I'm sorry, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm a diehard advocate for veterans, and to me, I don't determine that on the amount of years that they served, or what form they served, whether that's Marines, Navy, et cetera. I just think that anyone who goes selflessly and is, you know, ready to die for our country, I advocate for them. So I'm in favor of waiving it. Some of our sisters towns do. I get what Director Schill is saying, you know, revenue. We don't have precise numbers at this time to determine what kind of costs we're talking about, but even if we did have costs, we have to keep in mind that surely that number is gonna increase annually, you know, as people move in and people, you know, move out. I think those numbers will continue to fluctuate. And yeah, if we had an extra $300,000, would we want to use it in this fashion? I guess really is the question that we would have to ask ourselves, you know. I'm hands down, yes, that's just me where I stand. But, you know, there's 8 of us that has to determine, you know, where we wanna move with this. And if nothing else, if it's agreed, you know, in favor that it remains the way that it is, that there is no exemption, then I would like the ordinance to be rewritten as such that it's not confusing for veterans to feel that they're being misled. Because I do get those conversations. It starts off with, why don't I? But the real confusion is that I'm led to believe that I do, and I don't. Because their term of retirement is not the same term that we're using. So that's where their frustration comes in, and I can get that. You know, it's like a kind of a bait and switch type of thing, right? So that's where I really, you know, if it's gonna remain the same, I would really love the wording to change.
I'll look at the
Well,
ordinance
let's
the way it's
bring
written.
forth next meeting, the wording and what exactly is in there.
Well, I have it right here at the
Oh.
bottom on my thing
Okay,
of the list of towns. I actually copied what we have in our ordinance and what it says. So it's this form in here that has, yeah. Sorry for the small font.
This is a sample text from one of the UIs.
No,
This is-
the bottom where it says passenger vehicles
Yes.
registered, this is actually
out of the
our ordinance.
That's out of our ordinance.
That's our ordinance on our website.
Okay, they ask for a military ID, a retiree license plate, retiree ID, which is a DD 214, and, or a retiree license plate. And we can
maybe
make
we
it-
just have to tweak
We
that.
can make it more specific and spell it out.
Yeah, because I think it's the retiree word. Well, I did retire, right? I served my 4 years, I retired. I think that's where our gray area is,
Okay, so,
because our definitions are different.
We could
So if
either-
we're not in agreement to pass, or even have further discussions about this, to keep it the same here, or to move it forward to our council, then I would make the recommendation that we change our verbiage. And we could table this for the next time if you'd like, but it's something that I would like to see corrected before our registration goes out again next year.
We can do that.
Can I just share that I think, I'd like to continue to look into this a little bit more. And so I just, as a new person here, Is this something that also could be brought up, like, prior to the budgeting process? Because we have to look at, to your point, in terms of revenue and what's being moved or shifted.
Oh, this is a discussion that
It's a big-
affects,
yeah, it's
in that
huge.
it's here, then it goes to revenues and taxation. All of this because trying to make up, $300,000 to $400,000 worth of revenue, will be A, a tax increase, B, fee increases, or C, cuts in service. So, I think that's a discussion that needs to be had more than just this group, absolutely.
Yeah, Nicole, is there a way to get a rough estimate of numbers of what we potentially have or think we have of veterans in our community?
Well,
Are they registered that way right
No.
now? No? Okay.
No, and I
Okay, then.
don't remember how we got that
ECU
years
data.
ago.
2.5.
ECU data, census
Oh,
data.
because-
we get numbers that were an estimate of 15% of our population.
Yeah. Well, Alderman Berwyn just brought up a really good source, the census.
Yeah.
I know the new one's not out
I
yet,
don't know
but-
So there's
Yeah.
ACU data, the American Community Survey,
Right.
ACS. So that's ongoing. Yeah, the census 2020 data, is still in the late, but there is the, American Community Survey. You guys can always look into that, and that is the data that is also
Right.
utilized and leads
Okay.
up to the census.
Okay, so what you're saying is update the ordinance to clarify, or,
If they choose not to move forward and try and
correct,
waive fees for everybody.
or one free sticker per veteran or per household? Are we gonna follow like, what we do for seniors and the ex-POW?
Because that's part of it too, is we
Well,
have,
to
we
me,
have
it's
the
just the
POW.
person who served in my mind, right?
Okay, so that's
It's
the only
not-
one that's confused, is the person that's
It wouldn't
done
be the
for 8
household, the
years.
entire household, it wouldn't be the spousal unit.
But what if there's 3 veterans in one household?
Well, that's why I'm saying the person themselves that can prove that they were.
Alright,
they
so
served.
there's no limit in a household. That affects how the
Well,
ordinances are done.
Yeah, that'll have to take some thought, because who is the car registered to as well? There's,
Yeah. So, yeah,
Well, I think it would kind of, for me, it would follow like our ordinance that we have with our accessible parking, right? It's, if you are asking for accessible parking, which is formerly handicap, that person has to have a motor vehicle in their name, registered in their name, they have to have a valid driver's license, and they have to purchase a vehicle sticker. So it would have to be the same requirements, to me.
okay, and then what if a veteran has like 3 cars?
God bless them, they don't need one free sticker then.
Well, these are questions that may come up when.
they do come up.
No, they do, they
absolutely
do. But I think that those in-depth conversations are if we even are gonna consider this, and I think at this point, we haven't even determined that.
Yeah.
So I think if we wanna continue even talking about this, then
Those
we
are
can.
step 2?
Right, those are a lot of questions we would have to have answered.
Okay.
Alright, so just push this off to the next committee
Yes,
meeting?
Table, well,
Table.
continued, to be continued.
okay,
Alright,
great. Super block parking,
Same back channel.
just to bring some of our committee members up to date. If you don't know, super block parking right now, I'm sure you know how it works. It's a block initiative that kind of works like everyone has to sign the petition, 51% of it, of the block has to be in favor of wanting to be a super block, meaning that the parking on the block is specifically for individuals that reside on that block. And in that case, right now, there is a special sticker, correct, Nicole, that's made for that block, they become a zone, and that is an extra print outside of our regular stickers. And there is no fee attached to that whatsoever. So, to me, that's a premium luxury type of parking. I understand you're a taxpayer and you pay taxes. But again, you know, we have lots of cost and where do we wanna spend these costs? And then the cost of printing the separate style sticker for these
And the
blocks. And a hang
And they
tag.
get hang tags for
And they get a
parking.
hang tag for their visitors. We've been incurring that cost. There's never been any fee passed on to the residents for this. So since the beginning of however long super blocks have existed, this has been a prime luxury that's been provided free of cost.
Right, and then you also have to keep in mind that someone that lives in a super zone, they can also park on the next block, where the person that lives on the next block cannot do that. So there's also an element of, you know, keeping things consistently fair amongst all taxpayers.
Right.
There's an inequity there.
And just in my research that I've done in my own ward, in past conversations with Nicole about registered cars per block, it's easily in my ward, and I'm sure there's other pocket areas throughout the city, that there's literally probably 50 parking spaces per block, and I can easily have 100 to 150
Oh, yeah.
cars registered on one block.
It's
So
very
when you
common.
do a super block, you are immediately creating an overflow.
Mhm.
So you're allowing one
Right.
block to have prime parking, and then the overflow now infiltrates on other areas which don't have the same luxury or pleasure.
Right.
So my question is again, and we can add this to our list of conversations with the veteran sticker, is do we wanna charge for that? Because it's kinda like everything that's free, right? Sure, I'll apply for it, sure, I'll take advantage of it, sure, I want it, because there's no skin in the game for me, there's no cost to me. So I'd like to add that to, our list of, continued conversations, so just kinda where I'm going with that. And then our last item
Wait,
really.
before you leave, one thing that you should also look for in terms of super block parking is what the historical purpose was for, making a block, super block. Because we have some, right, like the 3200
Yeah.
block of Clinton and some places that were required because they did
I-
hospital parking and that.
Right,
so-
right. I would say there are probably a handful of locations that should have super zone parking because, yes, like we have the commuter hospital parking where we are mandated to have permits for those parking spaces from the railroad, and the people don't wanna pay for permits, so they go park in the residential areas, which is not fair to the residents. So yes, there are some situations where it would apply, but not,
Doesn't
No.
want to.
in the middle of a residential area.
And you might also include in your deliberations, some process to revoke super block parking, like the 2500 block of Wesley, or no, Wesley?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is a super zone because it used to be the police department.
yeah.
And that was incredibly bad, but it's not now, and I tried to get it revoked, or tried to help revoke it, but all I could do was like pass a petition, because to get it, you have to have a petition, so you would think logically, to get rid of it, you need a petition. Well, most
Why
of the
give up something
neighbors,
you got?
yeah. You know,
Right.
6 people hated it because their relatives on Christmas got tickets, and the rest of the people loved it. And so there's, how do you get rid of it once you make it?
I
Very
was a
valid
teenager
points,
when
Marge,
the
thank
police
you.
department was
Yeah.
there.
Right, because another designated area was the post office area to prevent employees from parking in the residential areas for 8 to 10 or 12
Yeah.
hours at a time. So there are some random spots throughout our city, but again, those are kind of isolated.
Yeah, isolated
Situations,
situations. Mhm.
Okay. Just bringing back our accessible parking fee structure that was actually, had gone through the entire process of getting approved. There was some questions about the fee increases and whether they were exponential, and wanted us to look at them and reconsider them. I looked at them based on, I also provided my minutes from our previous parking meetings, what we had voted on, what we had discussed. And then Marge was kind enough to print copies of our fee structures as they were, and as you can see, they're not substantial, exponential increases. They're very nominal. Again, this is another, parking matter that has existed for a long period of time. The fees to have handicap parking signs installed and remain have been very minimal fees. There's never, we've had like a $10 application for how long, Marge?
Forever.
Very, yeah, a
It's
very
been
long period of time.
forever
So
and ever and ever.
again, here's another source of cost to the city that has never had any increases, that has remained the same for a very long period of time, that we have been incurring the cost. And so I just wanted to say that we're gonna go ahead and move forward with it. I don't really see any changes that we should make. And I just wanted to make sure that we were all still in favor of it. I know we discussed it well over a year ago.
Mhm.
So unless anyone had any major concerns about it.
No, I just wanted to add, you know, we review however many applications every week. And I am trying my best to make sure the people that really, really need it, they just don't want to, you know, it's very inexpensive otherwise, and it goes back to that, it's free, why not apply for it type thing. You know, I get applicants that say, oh, my garage is empty, my garage is used for storage, other cars, my landlord, which is their relative,
Yeah.
they
My
don't,
son
people,
owns the building and won't let me park in the garage.
people have said to us, I don't want other people parking in front of my house.
Without Nicole's help too, we wouldn't know that some of the applicants have off-street parking stickers.
Yes,
And then they say that they don't have access to their garage. Well, where are they parking?
yes, they have off-street vehicle
So
stickers.
there's a lot of gaming that goes on. When I sat in your seats, I predicted that there would be a huge rush for handicap parking because of aging baby boomers, and we're seeing that.
Mhm.
We get several applications a week for this. It touches at least 4 different departments. The cost, I think we estimated back then was about $300 to $400 for installation after everybody touched the
But, yeah,
paperwork.
From start to finish, from the clerk's office to public works review,
The
to
police
engineering
department
review,
interview.
to police departments interviews, to public, to the council meeting, to public works, going through and doing the Julie, cost to install, cost of materials was about $400.
And there's an ongoing process, because once signs go up, all the neighbors watch those spaces,
Mhm.
and they begin calling to say that the spaces are abused, that the person has moved, that they haven't seen that person,
Yeah. and
because they
then-
want that space.
And then you get PD involved, so, just so you guys understand where I'm coming from, I follow the ordinance, okay? And if an applicant has a garage, you know, I will, you know,
Deny
suggest
them.
against it. If they have an off-street vehicle sticker, I say it's invalid. If the owner rents the garage, that's a big no for me, you know, if it's a single-family home and they try to divide it up into like 3 separate units, you know, you just can't do that.
We got that one too.
Well, this was all discussed well over almost 2 years ago
Mhm.
now, we're talking about. And again, it was for all the reasons that we've discussed.
Mhm.
It's also to try and recover some of the costs that we have been taking on for many, many, many years. And also just a small, hopefully deterrent of having individuals to wanna abuse a free system.
Yeah.
It's a very small fee to pay. I mean, we went from $10 to $20 for an application in the last 20-something years. I don't think that's exponential.
So now it's 20.
Yeah, and then we did, you know, the renewal fee the renewal fee went from $10 to $20, I think, or $15 to $25. So it's all very nominal increases. It's not exuberating, so
The
I.
best part of it is the fact that we have a non-refundable application fee, so we
Correct.
can stop these people that
Well,
come in and take
There's a
people's.
confusion then, because I thought the $55 was refundable if they weren't approved.
There's a $20 application fee.
Non-refundable application fee, so when they
Okay.
first submit their application,
It's a
Okay.
$20 fee when they come in and go,
Right.
I want to apply. And then when they get denied, and they go, well, like you get all the time, well, I'm gonna reapply, and I'm gonna reapply. It's $20 each time now, so instead of,
And the
Wasting everybody's-
$55 is
the
for?
$55 was the sign
Install fee.
installation
Okay.
at the very first time, so there's no additional fees for the signs or when they're removed, there's no fees.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
But
we have
in
to
the
pay for our
circumstance-
duties and everything.
But in the circumstance, I think this is where a little bit of the confusion came in. Remember a few times we had an incident where the resident was notified multiple times and never put in their renewal application. The signs were finally removed, and then they came in the next day and said, oh, here's my application. And then Public Works had to go back out there and reinstall the signs.
Mhm.
So the reinstallation of signs is another $55.
It's right here.
And I think-
So originally it's, the 55 plus the 20?
So the
For
application fee is
application?
20,
And
and if you get
installation.
approved, it's $55 for the sign installation.
Okay.
So sign reinstallation is $55.
And that one is what, reinstallation?
Any other questions?
There's one thing to consider if you ever look at this again. The ordinance asks us to make sure that they don't owe any debt to the city, and over time, we've been able to collect about $6,000 in unpaid blight, building, water fees. We have one applicant who's a renter, so the fees aren't her responsibility, but the building itself owes well over $20,000 to the city.
Wow.
So the thing is, we don't really know, I mean,
The water department should know if the tenant or the landlord is responsible for the water bill. So that's where the water billing people would have to get involved and look up in the system and see who's responsible for not paying the bill.
we also have been limiting the number of handicap signs to two on a block.
It's actually 3.
And sometimes three
Yeah, I
on a
think
block?
3 on a block, yes.
Okay. I think we're doing two.
It's a
Like two on
it's a
each
soft
side?
recommendation.
No, it's 3 per block.
Yeah.
Is that
For
what it
both
said in the
sides.
ordinance?
I'd have to check.
We
But
not,
I've
we
had
might
this
not have
conversation.
any specific
I don't-
wording in the ordinance.
I don't think that we do, Marge.
No, it's based on our investigations.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead with what you were saying.
No, that's fine, if it's 3 per lot. I mean, we have,
4-minute warning.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. We just have some, people where there's a chain of handicap
Oh,
parking
yes.
all on one side of the street. And each parking spot is 22 feet. Zones are a little bit smaller, but not by much, and so if you get 3 on one side of the street, you pretty much, they have nowhere to go on, street cleaning day, because you've pretty much taken up the majority of space on that one side of the street, so.
Well, just to recap, we are going to discuss at our next meeting the tree initiative and parking fees and schedule changes for our next fiscal year. That would include super blocks and veterans. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn? Second.
All right, all those in favor, yay. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your presence. Is this a recent? Oh, that's 2015.
Yeah, that was when we did it the last time.
Is that your copy?
Yeah.
I called him, he started walking home.
Thank you, Marge.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. Are we off yet?
Nope.
Not yet, no, we've got a couple minutes.
Thank you guys, and thank you for all you do.
There was a lot of choking in the beginning. I forgot we're still
See,
on.
it's